Am I audible? Yes. Whoever is on the sound, please little bit quick. The transition is not as smooth as should be. Anyways, break चाहिए? लंबा हो गया? चाहिएगा भी तो भी नहीं मिलेगा. You have to sit and listen. Okay. So after the compounding interest, the magic of compounding interest, and a very good presentation by UTI gentlemen. So I think अब 2-3 दिन तो सपने में वही आएगा कि अच्छा 1 का 2, 2 का मम्मी पापा से 1 रुपया मांगते हैं, अगले दिन उनको बताएंगे 2 रुपये, अब बताओ कितना दे सकते हो. So that is really interesting, and the good part is that कि अगर आप वो कर जाएंगे, उसका आधा भी कर जाएंगे, तो your life become change in terms of the money, क्योंकि उसकी ज़रूरत हमको हर तरफ होती ही है. Now coming to this session, we have two entrepreneurs who would not just define the things as a journey which is to earn money or to do something. It is about, as the word used by Kanchan, sustainability, and sustainability is something which is really really important and the need of the time. थोड़ी अलग बात करेंगे यहाँ पर हमने, क्योंकि पहले एंटरप्रेन्योर स्किल्स और बाकी सारी चीज़ें तो स्टार्ट की, लेकिन आप दोनों से ही यामिनी फर्स्ट यू, आप एक अच्छे कॉर्पोरेट जॉब में थे, आई थिंक यू आर विद मैकेंजी, और उसको छोड़ के वाइमो स्टार्ट करना, वाई? बिकॉज अभी जब हमने थोड़ी देर पहले पूछा यहाँ पे सभी बच्चों से कि वो क्या करना चाहेंगे, तो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ देम से कि दे वांट टू ज्वाइन सम काइंड ऑफ अ जॉब. बहुत कम थे अभी आज की तारीख में जिन्होंने कहा कि मैं कुछ अपना शुरू करना चाहूँगा. What inspire you or what make you to start your own journey and living a job at McKinsey?
I think in general, I've started understanding that in the world some people have a kida, and and then otherwise they are very well adjusted. But there was always a itch to do something about things that I saw were not working perfectly, whether it was the elevator of a building or whether it was. And in consulting, you get a lot of opportunity. I think it's a great idea for people to actually start with a job and then consider, because you really don't know what you're walking into. Yeah, knowing everything about this, not everything, but knowing a lot about the space I got into, there was still a lot I learned along the way. Today, if I reflect in 12 years of the journey, I think what I knew was less than 1% of what I know today about it, or even 3 years later, what I learned about it, right? Corporate or any job at any place gives you a very good baseline exposure to how things work. It exposes you to problems you've probably never faced before. So I think it's a very good baseline to start with. McKinsey was an amazing opportunity. It was in consulting. So every 6 months we worked on an average with a different customer, a different problem statement. So we got to go very deep into trying to understand how things work or don't work. I'd done a lot of sales transformation work. And after 5 years of doing that, I realized customers still found it tough to implement some of the things we were saying because technology did not enable them to do that. And that's how Waymo was started, with the goal of building sales technology that helps make some behavior stick on an ongoing basis. Right? So, yeah, that's what led to the shift.
Your answer makes sense, क्योंकि हम देखते हैं कि most of the startups जो founders हैं, उन्होंने पहले कहीं ना कहीं जॉब किया, वहाँ से सीखा और फिर उन्होंने आगे जाके अपना ही काम किया. लेकिन उसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में और भी बहुत सारे लोग रहे होंगे. Why that particular person started his own startup going forward? वो डिफरेंस क्या है? मतलब मैं ये बात समझना चाहता हूँ आपसे कि इसमें से जैसे बहुत सारे बच्चों ने कहा कि वो जॉब करना चाहते हैं ना, और दे गॉट द आंसर कि शुरू में वो एक्सपीरियंस लेंगे, लेकिन क्या डिफरेंशिएट करेगा कि इनमें से कोई एक जाके आगे एंटरप्रेन्योर बनेगा और बाकी सब जॉब ही करेंगे?
I think someone in the previous session talked about safety net, and it's everyone's comfort level on what that safety net is. My dad started with a job that he retired in with the same company, right? I have known people in my colleagues or batchmates who went into a similar role as me have stated goals, like one of them wanted 100 million in the bank. That for them was the minimum amount, right? And they wanted a reasonably predictable path there. And while I didn't have a number, I had a sense of safety. After 5 years of working, I had a sense of, if this was the rest of my life, how would I want it to be? And at that point, certain other things mattered, things I wanted to try, right? And I was itching to do by myself. So I think that number is very different. I think 100 million is an outrageous number, first of all. Just to clarify, nobody should set that as their goal here. That person is still dredging it. But I think you can, depending on what your background is, where you come from, what your responsibilities are. I've seen people who could be highly entrepreneurial, but they've not been able to step away from some very heavy duty responsibilities, right? But I think it's that balance, and you'll know when you feel like you can take the risk, because the probability of success is very low. You should be okay with being an absolute fail, and you should know not to judge yourself for that. You should judge yourself only for giving it your best and trying. So you should be at a place where you can take that risk.
Nice one. सहर, आप WHO में थी पहले, फिर आपने बेयर नेसेसिटी शुरू किया. आपकी भी जवाब बिल्कुल वैसी होगी या थॉट प्रोसेस वैसी थी जैसी यामिनी की है, या you thought something different?
So for me it was quite different. I always thought I would work in the impact space, do something that would be beyond just a financial goal. I always wanted to create environmental impact and social impact. So I worked in the United Nations, very optimistic about the world. I was at the WHO in Geneva, and it was amidst the Ebola outbreak. So it was a very hectic time, but also I got to see how systems around health moved really quickly, which was very inspiring for me. Fast forward a few years, that felt a little too fancy, 14th floor, and it felt very disconnected from the real world. So I moved back home to Bangalore, and I started to work in the solar energy and access space. So I worked at Selco India, Selco Foundation. I came up with new areas in which we could solarize a public need. So we solarized public health centers, hospitals, sewing machines, roti rolling machines, papad rolling machines, and then kind of scaled up through the social enterprise. While I was working at Selco, everyone knew I was really excited about waste. So I had actually set up the waste segregation at office. I did a little demo, had put up the signs. So there was this community actually very close to our very fancy international airport, supposed to be the best airport in the world, right? Our Bangalore International Airport. Very close to that is a waste picker community. And they live in very basic blue tarpaulin homes, informal housing, obviously no access to flowing water, roof over their head, all of that. And their day-to-day is that they collect waste. So when someone at work came across this community, they said, oh, let's put Sahar on this project because she's, obsessed about waste. So that's how I got involved, and I actually would follow them on my cycle in the mornings, 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. I was kind of noticing the conditions in which they were segregating our waste, but I also kind of got to understand how much money do they get for 1 kg plastic, 1 kg of cardboard, what were the high value products that they can recycle, what's not a high value. But beyond all of this, I just really got to humanize them. They were someone's dad, they were someone's mom, they were someone's brother, and they were, without any gloves or anything, going through all of this waste, whether it was sanitary napkins or, broken glass. And that's when it really struck to me that I've studied environmental things, worked in the environmental space, but our waste problem, it's beyond just an environmental issue. It's also a human justice issue. So that's how I got to think about how to create everyday products that you and I might use, like a compostable bamboo toothbrush, like shampoo that comes in a shampoo bar without any packaging waste. So trying to reimagine everyday products that you and I need to use, because it's really ironic, us being clean and us showering and us being safe is causing the world to be, or our earth to be, so dirty. So it was very kind of contradictory and didn't make sense. So that's why I started Bare Necessities.
तो सहर ये बताइए कि सस्टेनेबिलिटी या जो इमोशनल पार्ट आपकी स्टोरी का आपने बताया कि आपने क्या देखा और वहाँ से आपको आइडिया है, बट व्हेन इट्स कम्स टू द बिजनेस आपको बैलेंस शीट क्रिएट करनी है जहाँ प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी दिखनी चाहिए, तभी आपके पास इन्वेस्टर्स आएंगे, तभी आपको सीड मनी मिलेगा. कितना डिफिकल्ट था ये?
I'm completely self-taught. I didn't take. I took a few business courses in college, but I was largely studying environmental economics and environmental law in Cambridge. So I was completely humanities kind of. If you have to put me in a bucket, I'm an arts kid or humanities kid. So yes, I learned. I went to INSEAD. I did a executive course there. I watched a bunch of videos. There's access to so much knowledge now. So really leveraged all of that. Started very simple and small. Basic Excel. What are my expenses? What are how much am I making? What am I left with? Started really, really basic, and then kind of obviously have evolved my business model since. But it's a lot to learn on the job. But that's what entrepreneurship is. You just kind of swim right in and jump into the deep end and then just swim.
Okay. Yamini, जब Vimo आपने start किया, how old it is?
It's in the 12th year.
12th year. तो definitely एक दशक पूरा निकल गया, 10 साल या 12 साल हम कहें. तो शुरुआत में जर्नी ऐसी, आज से 12 साल पहले अगर हम देखें तो स्टार्टअप का सिनेरियो भी इंडिया में वैसा नहीं था जैसा आज है. आज आपके लिए बहुत सारी फंडिंग एक्सेसिबल है, गवर्नमेंट के बहुत सारे प्रोग्राम हैं. लेकिन उस समय आज से 12 साल पहले जब आपने ये सब शुरुआत की थी, तो डू यू हैव एनी आइडिया कि ये कहाँ तक पहुँचेगा, कैसे पहुँचेगा? यू जस्ट ट्राई, यू जस्ट गिव इट अ ट्राई.
Actually, I mean, bunch of my friends were in some of the early stage investment companies, so I had a sense of how the world works. But the intent during starting, and I'm sure it's the same for Sahar, was not that, hey, I see a lot of founders today talking about fundraising as the first milestone or goal. That was not even in the thought process, because it was not a thing at that point to start up. Actually, starting up was considered reasonably stupid option at that point in time. From McKinsey, you should be going into a private equity or a corporate kind of a role, a CXO role, right? So the idea was that there is a problem, it's exciting. The thought of being able to convert that into a product and that product being used and us getting paid for that was probably what I was, intensely focused on. Funding came, the thought of even getting that funded came much later, when suddenly this started growing and we didn't have money to hire a head to fully build out the product, etc. Right? But we were pretty narrowly focused, and rightly so, on finding the right product for the right customer and user initially. Yeah.
Okay, and what about you?
So I'm very lucky. I have some amazing angels on my cap table, like Mr. Prashant Prakash of Axel. He's like the founding father of venture capital in India, and just really believed in the product. He was a consumer and then has reinvested in us multiple times. So we have some amazing angels. And the most spectacular thing about it is all of them are actually from Bangalore, although only one currently lives in Bangalore. One lives in California, one lives in UAE. But it's really, really nice how everyone wants to kind of give back and wants to really put their money on something that they believe in. So I think that value alignment within my angel investors is something that I'm extremely grateful for. They've been with us on this journey for about 4 years, and some new ones joined on even as recent as May this year.
But Sahar, इतना आसान तो नहीं रहा होगा. बहुत सारे hurdles भी आए होंगे, बहुत सारी difficulties भी आई होंगी. वो सब कैसे निकाला?
Yeah, definitely. Since we're talking a little bit about money, I'm going to share a little candidly. I lost my dad when I was 8 years old, and our financial situation changed completely overnight. And they say, especially women, they really think about money only when there's a death or a divorce, the 2 Ds. And unfortunately, it was something I experienced. I have 2 older sisters. I went to all these fancy schools, but you won't believe it. I went on a complete full-ride scholarship. And my undergrad as well, I had a partial scholarship, and then I worked 3 jobs on campus. So I learned a lot about kind of, moving from a poverty mindset to a more prosperity mindset, but also just about, how to start small, but start investing, your personal money, etc., from a very early age. And that I think I also brought that financial discipline to how I run my startup. And that being something that's so close to my heart, I'm really proud to tell you that we have a 100% women-run manufacturing team. None of them had a bank account before they started working at my MSI schools. So that's something I'm really excited by. So we also do actually financial inclusion workshops for them. Okay, you have a bank account, what does that mean? We also, of course, give them interest-free loans. We've helped support a lot of their kids' education, a lot of health-related things, but also access to health insurance, which, again, they did not have, and they did not know how to use or leverage these systems. So that's something that, having been through some of these personal experiences from a really early age, I felt that it was very natural for me to try and build that into the business that I'm building today.
It's an inspiring journey. और जैसा reaction भी आया, so all the student can learn a lot from you here. यामिनी, अभी जैसे इन्होंने भी कहा mindset, and हम किसी भी बड़े एंटरप्रेन्योर की बात करें, वेदर इन इंडिया या बाहर भी, तो सब लोग इस वर्ड का बहुत यूज़ करते हैं. व्हाट दे एक्चुअली वांट टू से, इवन अभी यामिनी ने भी कहा, या आपकी भी एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग होगी, इज इट द स्किल सेट विच इज़ इम्पॉर्टेंट, इज इट समथिंग एल्स विच इज़ इम्पॉर्टेंट, और द माइंड सेट इज द ओनली थिंग विच क्रिएट द डिफरेंस?
I think, so there were 3-4 different ideas I was thinking of when I was about to start up, right? And a very wise man, my husband, told me, what is it that you're really good at that people will be willing to pay money for? Why is it that, because many ideas are like, anyone can come up with ideas, right? But what is it that will give you an advantage to win? Why should you win? And I think there are many intrinsics related to that. There are those who have the grit and commitment and the willingness to see things through, etc. So those are all generic mindsets that are required. If you're getting into startup something, it's not an overnight game. It's a very long-term game, and like you start with 1% knowledge and you learn everything along the way, right? Whether that's formal, informal knowledge. It's a lot of on-the-job training, right? So those are all like hygiene factors for if you want to start up, have the grit to see it through. But outside of that, I think what is it that you bring that is special as a distinctive advantage really helps, right? Like, and the willingness to do the research to really understand how to make it work. In her case, it was coming from the background of actually doing something in the space of sustainability. In my case, it was consulting on sales transformation multiple times over. So you can see the pattern and realize what kind of solutions don't solve and what kind of solutions truly solve. But also in early days of doing something, you have to be honest to yourself on what early success signals are. Sometimes the product selling or a customer paying you may not be just a sign of success, right? Their satisfaction with the product is a sign of success. In the case of software, we have something called daily active usage. So a customer may have paid for the next 1 year. They might have given the sales software to 1,000 people. I think UTI is our customer, so they would have 1,000 employees using Mimo. But are those employees using it in the behavioral style that you expect them to use? Like how many times a day, for doing what kind of activities? What is their level of engagement? Is it making their work easier or tougher? How many seconds are they spending on it? So there is a lot of energy in the initial days that needs to go into perfecting that behavior, that the anticipated use of the product and the problem it's solving is reflecting actually in numbers that you can measure and track. And if that happens, then that's the first big milestone. After that, it's a question on, you've sold to 1, how can you sell to 10? So cracking the sales problem. After that, if you have to sell to 100, then it's the funding problem, right? But the first thing starts with solving a problem genuinely for a user or a customer.
I think ये बात भी वही है जो हम पहले सेशन में कर रहे थे कि first you have to identify a problem, then give a genuine solution to everybody, and that is also within the cost. अगर उसकी cost भी बहुत ऊपर निकल गई तो वो भी गलत हो जाएगा. Now concluding this session, एक advice कोई आप दोनों जो इन बच्चों को देना चाहेंगे, just if they want to start their own startup journey or want to do some job or do anything in their life, one thing, starting with you.
I think don't forget to be happy. I think, you know, everyone chases the financial metric, but, you know, I think you should also think about what really makes you happy. And I think the time is gone where you only think about one metric, which is finance. I think you have to kind of urge yourself to think beyond that, and how do you create things that maybe care about people, planet, and profit, for example.
Right. Yamini?
My advice would be, whatever you choose to do, whether you choose to work to pay for your passions or whether you choose to work to learn and get to somewhere or discover what your passion is, whatever you choose to do, make sure you're present in the moment. If you've landed in a job that you wanted to, you might still discover a lot of things that you did not anticipate in that job. If you landed in a job that you did not expect to, you will still discover a lot of things that you will fall in love with, right? Just understand the fact that whether you planned for it or did not plan for it, there'll be 10% that you love, 90% that you don't. But you'll discover that 10 only if you are present in the moment, when you show up and really involve yourself, deal with the 90%, but really be involved. right? And that 10% will show you what your biggest strengths are, where you will be willing to go all in. And then whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's going and finding the perfect next job, etc., try to expand that 10% into 90% of what your time is spent on, right? And that's how you get to the whole Ikigai framework piece, right? You love someone who's willing to pay and you're willing to show up for that.